evolution and how it manifests itself as life and how we can utilize the knowledge of how that occurred to actually shape our own lives. It's a feedback mechanism, part of this whole communication story that I talk about. So anyway, receptors of the cannabinoid system are fundamentally involved in how we deal with everything. And they regulate everything in our body. And because of the way they have a positive effect on promoting health and life, and in part they do that by reducing the negative consequences of free radicals, here we have something completely unique. This endocannabinoid system regulating essentially aging. It's an anti-aging drug, and therefore it winds up inhibiting all the age-related illnesses, which are things like autoimmune diseases, cognitive dysfunction, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. So we see that endocannabinoids, as well as supplementation of endocannabinoids by either omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, which go on to make our endocannabinoids, or by direct use of cannabis. All of those things help supplement that system, which is now necessary for modern man. And let me explain that for a second. Because, everything winds up being a balance of opposing forces. You can look at it on a political system, conservatives and liberals. You can look at it economically as boom-bust cycles. But within us, it's the same kind of phenomena happening. It's always a balancing act. And one of the most dramatic balancing acts is whether or not we're producing free radicals or trying to repair the damage that occurred. So typically while we're awake and doing things, we're more metabolically active, we're generating more free radicals, and then we go to sleep at night and our biochemistry tries to restore our balance by dealing with the changes that have occurred during the day. And so sleep is very helpful. And again, if we look at the flow, well, cannabis gives you the munchies because our endocannabinoid system is how we experience hunger. There is nobody on the planet who does not use cannabinoids in the general sense. We could divide cannabinoids into two types, endocannabinoids and phyto or plant cannabinoids. Well, everything in all of our bodies from the time of conception until the time of death is regulated by our cannabinoids. And because we're living longer and because we live in a cleaner environment today than we did, just let's say 100 years ago, there are profound effects that need to be dealt with. We live longer, which means we accumulate more free radical damage, which means we get those illnesses. Well, those are the illnesses that are killing modern man in a clean society. It's no longer infections that are the leading cause of death. So we have to deal with the fact that we're accumulating too much friction. And that friction is regulated by our endocannabinoid system. If you knock out, for example, the gene that gets you high, which happens to be the main neurotransmitter system in your brain, if you knock that gene out, the mice die prematurely. They don't move a lot because they're too fearful to move. And, clearly the fact that they're dying younger tells you that there's a major impact on being not high. So the question is, how high should we be? And the answer in my mind is a little bit higher than we now normally are, which is why cannabinoids have all these anti-aging properties. So in the past, we needed higher levels of inflammation because we lived dirty and we died young. And now that we've cleaned up our act a little, we have better nutrition and public health and antibiotics, we're living longer, we're experiencing the friction more. In other words, the accumulation of damages that impair the flow because miscommunication occurs. So today, modern man needs to change the thermostat, the balance between cannabinoid activity and essentially free radical production. Mm-hmm. So we all need to consume a little bit more cannabis to promote individual health as well as social health. And if we don't do that, if we have what I call the blips, the backward-looking people running the world, they're the people who avoid newness because of their cannabinoid deficiencies. They don't adjust to change, so they avoid it. So their vision of the future is to recreate the past. And because of the common, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead. Finish your thought, because you had touched on something I just wanted to take you deeper into.
They have common vision.
You probably had it there.
Backwards-looking people share a common vision because their vision of the future is to recreate what's already happened. Whereas if your vision of the future is to step into the unknown, then everybody's going to have a different vision. But those people who are more cannabinoid endowed tend to agree that, hey, maybe I'm right, maybe you're right. So agreeing is a basic characteristic of people who are cannabinoid endowed, be it naturally or by enhancing their cannabinoid activity. They're a little mellower. They're less aggressive. They're less certain as to what the future holds, but they're optimistic because they have enough cannabinoid activity to understand that they're going to better adjust to the stresses of the unknown, as opposed to sticking their head up their butt and trying to recreate the past. And again, it's a balance.
Yeah.
You need the balance. You don't want, people tripping all the time. They'd never get anything done. On the other hand, you don't want minds of stone because then you'd never get anything done either. And all I'm saying is that the balance now has to shift so that we don't have idiots making pathetically stupid laws like prohibiting an anti-aging drug that kills cancer and is found in mother's milk, meaning cannabinoid activity. It's in mother's milk. That shows how all important it is. So nature has selected for us to basically get our newborns a little buzz, to relax them from the trauma of childbirth, to protect their brains from the higher exposure to oxygen when they come out, to help them forget the trauma so they don't suffer from PTSD from childbirth. And one of the things that I'm very interested in is if people are nursed and at that early age get their endocannabinoids and relax from childbirth, are those the people that become flips? And is it the people who are not nursed that become more fearful and paranoid and aggressive because, they're suffering basically from PTSD from childbirth? And are those the people that accumulate in government? And that's how you can explain the absurdity of prohibition of cannabis. It's because it's cannabinoid defective people who, it turns out, I believe, and I don't know this for 100%, but it seems to be true, if you're cannabinoid endowed, well, then you enjoy experiencing cannabis and you enjoy exploring the changes of a freer flowing mind. Whereas if you're deficient, you stay away from that because you don't have enough to give you the variability of mind to embrace the newness of even trying something different. And these are the ones, because of their fear and paranoia, that are going to protect the world by making cannabis illegal.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, well, essentially, if you think about it, we should be outlawing breastfeeding because the mothers are getting their kids a little bit of a buzz, and we should actually arrest all women for walking around with paraphernalia.